How do paramedics deal with stress? I've been a paramedic for more than 10 years now, and I can tell you that it is a stressful job. I just Googled the top 10 stressful jobs in the world. Physician is number 1, anesthesiologist is number 3, and a surgeon is number 9. So I can assume that paramedic lands somewhere in between there as well. I don't see it in the top 10 list, but hey, Google lies. I can see online that people are asking, how do paramedics deal with stress? So this is either a paramedic saying, how do I deal with this? Or it's someone who knows a paramedic who's like, how do they deal with it? Or it's someone who wants to become a paramedic and they're asking, well, how am I supposed to deal with this stress? And the difficulty is that being a paramedic or an EMT or whatever you want to call it, a pre-hospital care, or even a doctor, is that when someone who is not medically trained sees a emergency or a medical or a traumatic event, so someone gets hit by a car or someone dies from some sort of like breathing difficulty or whatever the case is, they can just say, well, I don't really want to deal with this, and they leave. We can't do that as doctors and paramedics and nurses and all these people who deal with death and dying and pain all the time. So we are witnessing this pain all the time, and that is stressful. And the moments that you have with the patient, so I'm speaking personally, is I don't know whether I find the moment stressful. A call comes to mind. I dealt with I think he was a 16-year-old who was driving his motorbike way too fast, and a Uber car did a U-turn where he probably shouldn't have done a U-turn. The teenager hit the car really hard. I got there, he was in cardiac arrest. We did CPR on him and I declared him dead on scene. And I didn't find that stressful because I knew what I was doing, I knew what I had to do. I realized, as soon as I realized that his neck was broken, I knew it wasn't going to work out. That whole ordeal wasn't necessarily stressful for me personally, but what I found stressful was having to deal with the mother and the siblings of the teenager, because they obviously came on scene. They obviously had to try to get there, and I needed to explain to this mom that her son has died. And for me, that is where the real stress comes in. When I have to tell a loved one that their loved one, or when I have to tell a family member that their loved one is no longer with us, that is, for me personally, the real hardship. Yes, seeing someone die is difficult, but we often have a better understanding of what's happening. So if they're like very old and they've got COPD or cancer or whatever it is, not that I'm downplaying these things, but we understand like life, and we understand that people get old, and we understand people die. So you get hit by a car and you die, it's sad, but it's not necessarily stressful. But then again, seeing death takes a toll. A lot of people will turn to coping mechanisms, whether that's healthy coping mechanisms like exercising and spending time with friends and finding new hobbies, or unhealthy like drinking and other bad forms of chemical abuse, like maybe even drugs or whatever it is. They become hateful. What kind of happens is that medical personnel get quite numb to these sort of things, because they kind of stop choosing to feel, because we see so much death and so much of the negativity and bad in the world that we see. We start to care less about humans. I'm not saying that's how I feel. I'm saying that I know paramedics and doctors who would probably say that they care more about a stray dog or a stray cat than a human that they don't know, which is really sad, because they've seen so much evil in the world that's how they feel. I think that the way that you need to deal with stress is that you need to find people who you can talk to who are safe. You need to find colleagues. You need to see a psychologist, or find someone who you can debrief with, someone who you can share these problems with, because it's very normal. I think it's very normal to see a psychologist. Even if you have nothing wrong with yourself, you should see a psychologist. You go to the dentist once a year, or you should go to the dentist once a year, or you send your car in for, it gets checked every 5,000 kilometers or whatever it is. Not because there's something wrong with that, because you could pick up something that's wrong. And that's kind of the same way I see someone seeing a psychologist. Even if there's nothing wrong with you, you should go for a checkup now and again, just to get that stuff off your mind, to get that stuff off your heart, and that's important. The other thing that I tell students or colleagues or whatever it is that a lot of people just tell you to stop feeling, to just become numb to what you see. But then what happens is that transfers into your marriage or your family life or your friends, and so you just kind of stop feeling, and then you become numb, which is unhelpful for a lot of reasons, but it is a method that works. What I do is I choose when to feel when I'm with a patient. So if I'm like, they're probably going to survive, they're talking to me, I'm talking to them, they're in this life or death situation, but I'm pretty confident that they're going to be okay, I can allow myself to reach out and be like, you know what, you are going to be okay, you know, you are going to be fine. But in that way, I start to care for this person, like personally. And in that way, I have a positive outcome because I'm like, oh, he's probably going to be fine. He is fine. He's happy. I'm happy. Great. But if I get to a scene and it's looking really bad, the kid who got hit by an Uber and his C-spine was broken, I know he's not going to manage. I know he's not going to come out of this. And so I choose not to then connect with him because I know this is not going to be a positive outcome. And so in that way, I'm able to protect my heart and protect my mind from what's happening. And I know this is quite like personal. It is personal to me. So yeah, there is no funny way to say how to deal with stress, but please, if you are struggling, if you are a paramedic or a doctor, nurse, whatever it is you do, please do not feel like you cannot reach out for help. Help is at the door. There's companies, there's people, you'll find colleagues, go to your management. Your company probably has some sort of stress helpful thing, and if you are looking at becoming a paramedic or you're looking at getting into this, it is difficult. It is stressful. It does play with your mind. Speak with anyone who does this and they'll tell you the same. So guys, once again, if you have any questions or if you want to discuss stuff at the bottom here, I'm not a psychologist, but I'll definitely hear what you have to say and I will respond to every comment.